finished up, it's time for us to actually get to work on the hood. The hood's going to take quite a bit of work. I've got rust repair to do, quite a bit, and then I've got to figure out how to actually make some hinges function. The first step to getting the hood to fit is to make sure we've got the front end all at the correct width. To get the front end at the correct width, we want to get the apron put back on. I don't know if I've ever done a whole lot of going over this hood with you guys, and if I have, well, you're going to get it again. When I got this thing, it had these amazing gate hinges for hoods. The entire hood section, or hood hinge section, down in the body in the original Fenders, had rusted out really badly. The hinges were gone. From what I understand, that is an extremely common failure on these travel-alls, so all that hinge area just rusts out and becomes total garbage. So when I was taking this front end apart, I decided I wanted to at least keep this image as part of the patina. I thought it was funny that these gate hinges were here, so my plan was to leave them in place. So I cut them just right there, where they connected on both. And my plan is still to leave them in place. But you can see this whole corner is completely gone. And unfortunately, it's exactly the same. Even worse over here. I cut this hinge the same way, but this whole corner of the hood is just completely destroyed. And unfortunately, that continues on the inside as well. I don't know if you guys could hear that or not, but there's a lot of rust up inside that cavity. Man, you can't see anything. Hold on, please. Not really better. This hood's super heavy. So, sorry, you're gonna have to deal with that. That whole corner is all completely rusted out. Same with that corner. And honestly, most of that entire rear structural bar is completely destroyed. Once I just have that repair work done, I'll finally be in a position to try and actually install this thing. Now, because of where I have to locate hinges, the way this is all designed under here, I need something that will lift and pivot the hood. So what I found were these. These are, like I said, a 90s BMW hood hinge. They bolt in this way. Put you guys down here. Ooh. So they bolt in this way and are dual pivot and actually open up, if I want them to, significantly. But if you watch the way they pivot, yeah, let's just pretend the back of the hood comes to here. When I open them, that point basically goes directly vertical and then even starts to come forward some. So for me to have a chance of this all working, I want this hood to go up that way. And I think these will do it. And they're a full cast piece. Like, the whole bottom half is actually cast in place. It's super solid. Over-engineered in the best of German ways. The hinges also have this ball here, which is a gas hood strut connection. So I could hook a hood strut to that, set something inside the vehicle, and then we'd be able to use hood struts. The truth is, I hate hood struts, and I would rather use a hood prop. Just a good old-fashioned twisted bar. So that's probably what this thing's going to have.
Talkie, talkie, talkie. No more talking.
With the hood skin repairs done, we need to move to the underside to rebuild the frame so that I can start figuring out the hinges. Unfortunately, these skin repairs, it's maybe hard to tell on camera, they're really not all that well fitted. And the reason for that I didn't realize, is this hood is actually warped all over the place. I think a lot of the rusting that went on between the hood skin and the hood frame actually just caused the frame to expand and create bows and buckles in the hood surface. So the hood's actually in terrible shape. At this point, I'm trying to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. And so it's just going to be what it is. I really love the patina on this thing. So I'm going to keep it as much as I can. Maybe one day in the future I will find another different hood that is at least the same blue color as my Travelall that's got maybe some rust on it. And I could replace it with that sometime in the future. Both those repairs done now. Where's the other one? There it is. So, we're going to start figuring out all that garbage. I just redid this one so that I could get a 45 in there. I like this a little bit better, but I do want to round that over. Not a ton. As you can see, both sides are basically the same thing. We've got maybe a foot there, maybe not quite a foot on either side that will build back into the framework. Unfortunately, I cut the length on this one wrong as I was doing it. I just mismeasured, so I'm going to have to fill that in. Maybe what I'll do is actually cut like a larger section out and then weld that in. Before I do that, I got to cut all of this out, and then we can start laying this all in flat. The rust gets pretty rough back here, but I'm not really going to worry about that. I'll just give it some rust paint and call it good enough. There's actually a variety of places on this hood in really bad shape. I mean, this whole chunk here is pretty rusted out, and you can even see it's a bit flexible. I'm not going to fix that. Up front under here, it's pretty ugly. I'll grind that out some. It's not as bad down here. Oh. So this is really the worst of it, but I'm just going to ignore that. It's not going to change anything one way or the other. I'm not super worried about it, so we're just going to call that good. Alright, I guess we need to set this thing back up the right way and figure out exactly what we need to do to make all these pieces fit together. There is a slight curve to the hood this way, and so I will need to put some curve in those bars I made, and I've not done that yet. Knocked some of the rust out of the hood. That's all crap that fell out from between the skin and the frame. Anyway, I tack welded the framework I'd made into the hood and threw the hood on here real quick. And you can see it's pretty much failure. Or maybe you can't see. So if I push this corner down about to where it goes, it's low in the middle. And it's way freaking high over there. So obviously I need a lot more curve in that setup than I put in it. Frankly, it doesn't even look like I put any. Also, let's zoom back out. This gap, I think, is quite a bit larger than it should be. Unfortunately, I'm running into that frame structure that I put in here with a lip that's right there that you can't see because my hand is blocking all the light. So I may have to tweak that lip until I can get this back far enough, because you can see it also, it's not back far enough to line up. So I'm going to have to deal with that. So overall, not impressively successful, but regardless, we got to pull this thing off. I'm not going to untack it. I think I'm just going to try to bounce on that frame a little bit and put some bend into it. But I'm going to get this hood back off the front of the Travelall and show you guys what it looks like when I'm trying to bend it. Alright, hood's upside down on the floor. And we have one corner propped up on a jack stand, and the other one's just laying on the ground. And we're just going to kind of stand in the middle of it and bounce up and down a bit. It's probably folding that corner excessively right here. Oh well. Otherwise, maybe I'll get another jack stand and stand between them. I don't know what I'm doing here, except probably ruining the hood. Good times. I'm going to bounce on this a bit more and then throw it back on there. Hot diggity damn, folks. That didn't work out too bad. I did less damage to the hood than I thought, and I got the curve much, much better. Let's see if we can zoom in even a bit more here. So you can see it's more or less level with that. I'm not worried about that section right there because that actually bolts down, so it's fine. And then as we move into the center here, it's low but fairly consistent all the way across. Which just means when I set the hood hinge height, that will be taken up. And then that corner, again, is pretty much flush to the fender. They're not perfect, but the fenders aren't fully bolted in either, so overall, that seems really quite good. My fenders obviously need to move. That's a giant gap. Let's zoom back out here. So, got a big old gap there. Got a spreading gap there, goes from a little tight to wide. And also, I'm not quite perfectly lined up. I have a center mark back there. Right there. And my hood ridge doesn't quite line up with it. Well, it used to originally. So, there's still a bit to do there. But, as cheesy as that was, man, that worked awesome, actually. I'm really pretty pleased with the way that worked out. So now there's just I've got to do a bunch of welding, and while I'm doing that welding, I've got to try to be careful doing that welding that I don't completely destroy the shape again, but I don't think that's going to be a huge problem because really I'm just tacking sheet to the brace work I made, and then I've got to figure out, honestly, a lot more, but we're in a good place. basic repairs to the hood are done. I've got the structure rebuilt. I've got the rust holes patched. Right in here, it gets a little flat, so I'm going to try to maybe brace that over something and get a little more curve into the hood. But it's not the worst thing if it just is what it is. It looks like this fender is sitting forward from this fender about 1/4 inch, but also this gap is huge, and this gap is merely big, but I think all of the gaps from the factory are pretty big, so I'm not as worried about that. But I, at this point, need to take off the hood. I've got to take off the fenders. I've got to adjust the fender struts, like the fender framework, pull that in, square all of that up, and then reassemble the front end so that I can make sure I've got the hood pretty close to where I want it. It doesn't have to be perfect at this point, not at all, but pretty close to where I want it. Because the next step is fitting these new hood hinges I picked up. And even though they do have some adjustment in them where I bolt them on, I've got to be at least within 1/4 inch, preferably more like 1/8. Time to get this thing torn apart. So some time ago, when I built this support structure for the fender, I originally had things spaced out and lined up, but I just didn't hit that for some reason. I screwed up where it went. And it's occurred to me since then, as I've been working on this, that there was a better way to measure everything I was working on to make sure that I had everything at the same height and square and all that fun. But I've had this stack of washers, cutting discs, stacked on this end for quite some time. And I figured out that it needed that a lot just by looking at how the body line was at the door compared to the other side. So obviously, I'm off by at least 3/4 inch here. But I realized that this plate down here at the bottom, I don't know if you can actually see it, there's a plate that goes all the way across the whole front of the Tahoe that's flat and level. It's square to the body. So I can use that plate as a reference point to figure out everything else. So if we're using that plate, then the top of this measures 22 7/8. And the other side measures nearly 21 1/4. I'm sorry, 22 1/4. So it's not actually quite 3/4 inch. 5/8 inch maybe?
So I'm missing some footage through here of how I built some of this, but I'm just putting in riv nuts to attach the hinge to the hood, and I cut out the back corner so that the hinge would clear. You can also see I've made a little bar that the hinge attaches to, and that's what I'm trying to fit here, is figure out how to get that bar in the right place to weld it to the shaft.
So I've got a bit of finagling to do there. You can see I ended up with a pretty large gap to make everything work, which means I put those bolts in the wrong place, unfortunately. But that just kind of is what it is. So I can push this, grind that, a little bit of finagling here and there, and reduce that at least. Maybe gain a little bit of space from over here, just by loosening things or whatever. Slide the whole hood to that side some, maybe. But in the down position, it seems to work. You can see here, it lines up pretty well. It's not a great gap, it's pretty wide, but it is consistent all the way across, so that's good. This fender gap gets pretty wide back there, and it's a little snug on this side, so I can move the whole hood that way a little bit probably, and that'll be all good. But this didn't work out quite as well as I wanted it to, unfortunately. I can open the hood just fine to here, and you can see there's a gap back there, but about here, I'm trying to show you how high up that hood is. I'm running into the cowl still. So I can get it this far. I can even bend the cowl some, or maybe my hood, I don't know. But I can get it this high, which, truth be told, is probably high enough for most maintenance. I want to see if I can prop it up this high somehow. So I can get it up that high, and I am flexing the cowl some right now, but I think I'm okay with it. You can't really tell, but it's pretty tight right in there. But that's how high up that will go. Which does give me enough space to get in even here at the back. So I can reach in here and work. All of that works. Excuse me. And if I'm getting up into here, I'm going to remove the hood and the cowl anyway to really get in there for any work in there. So I think we're going to call that a win. It looks level. It looks like the gap on that corner and the gap on that corner are pretty similar. So I think I'm in the range of, hey, this works. Oh man, that is awesome. I've got it attached. There's welding and trimming and shaping and cleanup to do. But this thing is on. It's in place. with the hinges functional, I can now bolt on the entire front clip. From here, there's still a couple other things to do on the front end, but that's the big stuff. Everything else is, I think, pretty easy. And I think that might be the last of the, like, complicated fabrication. I still need to make some interior panels and stuff that's a little bit difficult, but man, I think that's the big stuff, and I think it's all working. So I'm super excited about that. I'm actually really happy with everything where it is right now. Hopefully the stuff I've built is strong enough for long-term durability, but the only way I'm going to find out is by using it. If it fails, I'll build something new in the same place that's stronger. But holy crap. The hood's on and it works. Oh man, that is awesome. Anyway, guys, I think that's what we're going to call this one. Probably wrap it up here. And catch you guys on the next one.